Hello.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you.
Good. You too. Should I put headphones on? Will that be better for you? For us?
You can, I can hear things pretty well, but sometimes it's a little safer just from the feedback perspective. But I'm actually catching you fine. It's up to you. Honestly, I'm not hearing feedback, but you look cool like that too. So
Yeah, maybe I want to look cool for the people on the podcast, for the podcast listeners. I want to look cool.
that's right. That part's essential.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, I can.
Okay, amazing. Amazing.
And you can hear me okay?
Mhm.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Well,
We did
thank
it.
you.
Technology achieved.
Totally. Thanks for doing this. It's
Yeah,
super
my
cool.
pleasure. Thanks for asking me.
Oh, I had to. I had to ask you because I've been playing you on my radio show tons over the last like couple years.
Fun.
I've known of your music for a while, but we've never met, and or maybe we did years ago, but I
Maybe years
really
ago in my old band, I was in a band called Shit Get In for like eight
exactly.
years. And I feel like you know Nick,
I know
maybe.
Nick real
Yeah.
pretty well and Sasha. I know them both pretty well.
Yeah.
Great,
Uh,
great people. They were so
Very good
helpful to me
people.
when I started working in Montreal.
Okay.
They like had me over for dinner and kind of like they're such a fan. It's like a family.
Oh yeah, no, they're
I mean, it
community
is
vibes.
very
Yeah,
much
they
so.
actually are a family, but
They
yeah,
are a family.
they yeah. But they're big time community vibes.
Yeah, I met her mom and I've met her sister and one
Oh
of her
yeah, you
sisters.
know them all.
Yeah, they're totally cool. So no, I love your music. I really do. And I figure actually like why don't we just start by talking about that crazy video you just put out? Because it blew my mind. Just let's just talk about it for a little while because it's obviously like that was an acoustic version of the track. But
Hmm.
let's talk about putting that thing together because the track is called Heaven. This is like an acoustic version of Heaven. It's you
Hmm.
and what, six or seven backup singers and a
It's like
great classical guitar player.
yes.
So let's how did that come up? Who are these
Winnipeg,
people? Yeah, okay, let's
Winnipeg people. Yeah, no, it came up like I guess pandemic times, like everything. Like I don't want to be all pandemic obsessed or whatever, but like just everything shifted for me in terms of uh what I was working on. So I was like gonna just be on tour for a really long time, and then was like, okay, maybe I'll start writing for like a record, start putting out singles, start focusing more on localized, like making videos and just being creative. Like, and there's so many amazing people here in Winnipeg to be creative with. Like, and I just love this community. And I was just sitting like on I have like a front porch swing that I just sit and stare off into the distance for hours at a time now, which I never did before, but now pandemic times, hours at a time, I'm just staring at the birds, trying to think of things. And then it just was like, I want to do a version of Heaven because I don't have to do acoustic style things. A lot of the music that I do is very heavily produced and like it's not necessarily always just down to the voice, like just as purely as it is. And so I was like, I want to just reinterpret the song. That was the first single I knew I wanted to put out. I wanted to just like have a lot of fun with it and reinterpret it in a way, but I wanted to be like in a cloudscape that kind of looked like a community theater production. And then I just was like thinking of all these dream people that I've always kind of wanted to sing with. And Gabby, the nylon string player, is in another amazing band, well, in many projects, but Super Duty Tough Work, which is like a hip hop band
yeah.
that's kind of really coming up in Winnipeg, but also in the Canadian scene. And I've just always been a fan of hers and knew that I wanted to like get her specifically to like take the song. And I didn't even really give that much guidance. I was like, here it is, but I know that I trust your brain. Just take it and
So she
make it
kind of picked
nice.
out the bits, like the what the chords would sound, like kind of interpret the song for what it is, break it
Oh
down
yeah.
against the classical guitar. I mean, that's like the guitar. I play a nylon string guitar. I'm obsessed with it. And I started listening to her play, and I'm like, oh, this is killing. Like, I just love the chord choices, and she's so steady.
Hmm.
It's so great. So all of those people, you're telling me all of those people that sang on that track are from Winnipeg?
Well, from
Or
Winnipeg,
are in Winnipeg
are
now,
in
which is
Winnipeg, live in
crazy.
Winnipeg now.
So cool.
Yeah, and they all have their own individual projects,
Yeah.
and we've all kind of just like like some of them have sang backups for me before. Leith Ross is like a new amazing singer-songwriter, originally kind of from the Ottawa area, lived in Toronto, but now moved to Winnipeg, and we're all like, yes, we
So
got you.
cool. So cool.
Yeah, no, just
Yeah.
nice people.
No, the Leith Ross record is amazing. I've been listening to
Yeah.
them for a little while, and they're really, really good. Like it's really cool. And this is what I mean. Is it like I keep on? I'm out here on the East Coast. I'm in
Yes.
Fredericton now. I've been in Halifax for 15 years, and I mean, we all toured and we all had a sense of what was going on. But it's been
Hmm.
really interesting having a radio show where, like, the prerogative is to play Canadian music, and like no city, and I feel bad saying this to my East Coast friends. Like
Don't do it. No, do it.
no
I'm
city
ready.
is blowing my mind like Winnipeg right now. I'm not even joking. I said this to Boy Golden. I
Mm.
wrote him after I listened to that record. I was like, what's going on? He's like, oh, I met you. I used to play with the Landreths, Brothers Landreth. And I was like, of course you did. Like, this all
No,
makes
it's a
sense.
little pool, and Boy Golden's a pal of mine too. Yeah, we all kind of see each other. There's like now this kind of like Sunday night hang going on at this bar downtown that just like Joey was playing, like Joey Landers was playing for a bit, and then like Liam, like Boy Golden's there, Leith was showing up, like all these different people just kind of hanging. And I love being a part of it. Like I feel like Winnipeg sometimes gets a bit of a bad reputation for like just being like a city where nothing happens, like just where
Right.
in the middle of nowhere, no one wants to tour there, no major tours come through and whatever. And maybe you can feel that way being on the East Coast too. I feel like sometimes people like the bigger tours will not be coming to Winnipeg or
Yeah.
necessarily to Fredericton at the
We're coming
like
east. We're going to Montreal. And we're like,
exactly.
what?
Exactly. But I just feel like I've always like felt like there was so much beauty and just freaky people doing their own thing, and with the weather and everything, just everyone going in their basements and kind of like being creative, like for the sake of it, not to be famous, not that there's anything wrong with having goals of success or whatever, but just doing it for the love of it. And you feel that when people come together in this community and everyone's just like, for the most part, just really supportive and want to see people succeed and want to be collaborative. And that's just something that like I want to be a part of. Like
Yeah.
yeah,
It's so healthy.
it's inspiring to me.
It's so healthy. Well, it is inspiring, and it's so helpful
Mm-hmm,
when the wheels come off of touring and you're home for a little while.
mm-hmm.
You realize that you're in a community. And it's the community's not out there. It's here. It's like where we live. And I really felt like, living in Halifax all those years, it had very much that same spirit. I don't know.
I've heard that.
I wouldn't have had a career if it wasn't for moving to Halifax and meeting Rose Cousins and Amelia Curran and Old Man Ludica and I've Catherine McClellan and all of these people, Joel Plaskett and all these people who
Yeah.
were kind of making music in the city that was isolated. I mean, I always thought, you talk to people from Newfoundland and St. John's, very much the same situation, right? It's like
Mm-hmm,
you play with each other, you start looking around, you support each other, you kind of like it's kind of a different model.
mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Because the only way a city like that starts to get noticed is if there's more than one. It's never just one act that's just going to like blow up. It's kind of
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? It raises the whole boat.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
It's
I've
just,
heard that about Halifax too. Yeah, I haven't been there much, and I've toured there like I think a couple times with Shikam in like back in the day, but I definitely have felt that energy like from the people that I meet from Halifax that has a similar kind of like Winnipeg vibe.
100%.
Like,
And I think what happens is, is that you get a situation where genres start to intermingle because there aren't so many people in one genre that everybody just like, I only know folk musicians. It ends up being that, well, if you play music and you sing, then why don't you try singing with this person? And that's how I ended up working with Classified, you know what I mean? And
yes.
you know what I mean? Like then you end up doing these things that I don't think if I lived in a bigger city, our paths would have crossed. And I'm kind of seeing the same thing going on because you're doing stuff with Royal Canoe.
Mm-hmm.
Right, you do
Yeah.
stuff, and Anthony. Anthony
Anthony OKS. Yeah.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
yes.
Yeah.
I caught on to that track, and it's killing that you guys get together. It's so good. And I'm like, okay, who's this guy? Like, he's new to me.
Oh, he's awesome too.
Okay.
He's amazing. Have you ever heard of the Lytics? They're a
No.
Canadian hip hop band, like a band of brothers. Like they have kind of toured. They've been doing well in like Europe and stuff, but toured a lot in Canada. And like They are awesome. And Anthony is one of the members of that crew. And he kind of went off and did his own thing. And he's just like, it's just like, I think of these Winnipeg musicians and I just like, my face hurts. It's just like so many nice, I'm trying to stop myself from just swearing so much. I'm sorry. So many, so many nice people that are just like, just tender-hearted, pure people that just like want to make good things together. And like collaboration for me, like I was in bands all my life, like since I started playing music, it was always a collaborative thing. I met Joey Landreth when I was like 15.
Okay.
And we started a band. And then I was starting to play acoustic guitar on my own, trying to like sing Gillian Welsh songs, like being like, this is my path. I met him and I'm like, I don't play guitar. I'm too old. Like,
that's how I feel when I watch him.
Yeah, I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm like, oh, I guess I'm too old. Okay. But then we started a band and then it was just like, I've just been in that kind of collaborative setting. And then when I started Begonia, it was like, all right, bitch, you're on your own. Sorry. I am allowed to swear or I'm not?
You can say whatever you want.
I'm sorry. Like, I just, that's.
Oh, it's all good. I want it to be free flowing. This is
okay. Well,
maybe I should be careful what I ask for. But.
No, I won't let it like fully loose, but, yeah, no, and it's
cool.
Yeah. And so then it was like, okay, I'm doing this on my own. But then that's why I just feel like in Winnipeg, I take whatever opportunity I can to collaborate with other musicians and like feel that kind of energy of collaboration. Like it's so important to me, even though I'm like a solo artist now. But.
Yeah, but you obviously listen to lots of different styles of music. I always find the thing about collaboration that blows my mind is that no matter how much you've kind of like broadened your scope, a new person always makes you listen and approach music differently.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything I learned through music is almost now at this point through collaboration.
Absolutely.
Through other producers or through other people in the band or straight up artist collaboration where I'm just like, wow, I never would have thought of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting that's what you did with that. But part of it's like a letting go.
Oh my gosh.
It's such an important part, I think.
And it took me a while, like in starting Begonia to like be vulnerable with other people. Like, in writing sessions, like that your publisher sets you up with, or different people set you up and you're just like in a room or during pandemic on a Zoom session with like someone that you don't know. It's hard for me to like be vulnerable in that way, to like get to be, I don't know, like myself, like right off the bat. It takes me a while to trust myself, to not be intimidated, to not feel like this imposter syndrome energy where I'm like, I wonder what they think is cool. I'm going to try to say that like in a rhyme or whatever. Like it takes a minute. And so I have like people that I regularly collaborate with on Begonia stuff, like kind of like Elton John. What was Elton John's writer, like secondhand, like
Bernie Taupin.
Like I feel like it's myself and I got my Bernies like in the, and that's like, me and Bernie, like Royal Canoe, the Matt Peters and Matt Schellenberg from Royal Canoe, like we write all of my stuff together in that sense. And that's just brought me so much learning and getting past my own ego. But now that it's like, we've become so familiar with each other, it's just this second nature kind of thing where I can come in and be like, this is what I'm feeling. And they can be like, okay. And getting comfortable enough to tell someone you hate something is a really big thing too.
Big time. I kind of think sometimes the best ones are the ones that are able to get in that comfort zone. I mean, one thing I've found about these conversations that's been super comforting is that everybody feels this imposter syndrome, especially when they're in a room. Oh man, I don't do that much co-writing, but every single time I'm like, I don't know why I'm here. You know what I mean? I love this. I'm super into it. Like I love music more than anybody, but yeah, it's hard. Then you realize that actually most people have that same feeling, and there's those who just kind of say, okay, let's go for it. Let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, the best ones I think are the ones who let it all go the most. They're just like, it almost like they just, there's so many ideas flowing, not all of which are amazing. It's just more that there's not very much filter.
Definitely.
Like one thing I always talk about with writers is like that idea of editing yourself before it's come out. We do that so much. We're like, oh, maybe not, or maybe this is a stupid idea, but it's a classic, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Working like on my first record, I also worked with the writer, Marcus Paquin. Do you know Marcus?
Yeah. I don't know him. I know of him because he produces records too, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I met him and was kind of put on like a blind writing date with him and almost didn't go because I was like, he's too cool. He's done too many cool things. Like Matt Schellenberg from Royal Canoe was already pals with him and was like, I think you guys would get along so well. I think it would enrich your writing. Like if you were to get to know him. And I was like, that's cool and everything. But what if I show up and he's like, you're a loser.
Right.
So I almost didn't go. And I was like staying at a friend's place in Montreal and she's like, you have to go. I'm like, maybe I'm sick. Like, I was like, I can't go. But I went. And then now it has become one of like the greatest like songwriting partnerships of my life, like with the Mats, like, and we kind of wrote my last record, the four of us together. And that was like fighting past that. And his big thing was like, because I would do that. This is probably really stupid, but and he'd be like, I hate that you do that all the time. And he's like, my whole mantra with this kind of stuff is yes, and the improv,
right.
The improv, whatever, cool. Like, it's like, yes, he's like, you keep the door open until it like really reveals itself that it is slammed in your face. Like, keep it up. What is the fear of going down a rabbit hole for a little while? Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe then you see that the idea is no good, but like, don't, what you were saying, edit yourself. Like that was something that was really drilled into my head when I started working with him. It was like another little tool to put in my tool belt, like moving forward.
It's a weird one. It actually ends up opening you up more than close. Like I kind of felt like, I think when I was younger, I thought, okay, the more I learn, the more I'll get honed in on what's right. Do you know what I mean? And some sort of, I'll get closer to some sort of like answer. And if anything, it's actually just proven to me that like things actually become wider.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're actually quite open. We talked about Marcus Pecan just recently with Sarah Harmer was on the podcast last time and she made a record with him. And and I know he made the record with Tim Baker. He made a Tim Baker solo record and it was just insanely good.
So beautiful.
Yeah, it's
man, Tim Baker is such a great like songwriter, everything but vocalist. I'd like have like goosebumps on my arms, like thinking about it right now. It's like, he's so good. Yeah.
He's a freak. He's a freak. I'm glad we're talking about this because this is kind of what I want to talk about with you too. Because you are a freak. Let me just say, you are a total freak. I don't get to tell all guests that they're freaks. But
thanks. I like being a freak. I guess.
But honestly, like, I agree. Tim has this power. The first time I heard him sing, I remember I was like, wow. Now that's a voice of a star. Like in that he has this high. He has this like angelic high tenor thing that sounds like a choir boy sometimes. And that was his upbringing, right? He sang in choirs. Like he's a great singer, but then he can yell. Like he has this like real high intensity yell, which very few people have both gears.
Mm-hmm. You know and the control in both too is what is also just, but it's also like, there's that like divide of like the control, but also the abandon, like the emotional kind of abandon that I think is what draws me, like what makes some of my favorite vocalists. Like it's that control, but it's not a complete perfection. Like there's that, like, it's perfect in its own way, but there's just that rawness, like that then allows you to like really feel the emotions that you're like wanting to feel.
Yeah. It's not an intellectual exercise. Like you feel like it's coming from a real place. I feel like that with Tim, for sure. When he lets go, you're like, take me there, Tim. Take me there.
I saw such an intimate show of his Fortunate Ones were coming through town and they were like, oh, we have this extra ticket to see Tim Baker, like at this small, tiny venue in Winnipeg. And I saw it and it was just him trying out some new songs, like on just some instrument, like it was just little lamps. And I was just sitting, it was the first time I had heard him and I was just sitting in the back and I was tired. I was like, I don't know if I want to go, but they're like, let's hang out. And I was like, okay, I'll be a music lover for a night. I'm just gonna go. And I was just sitting in the back and I was like, what the fuck? What, do you hear that? Like, just like, it was, kind of blew my mind.
Yeah, I agree. And sometimes I think that sometimes we forget how good he is at singing. You know what I mean?
I agree.
I do. I really think he's one of the best around. But like, what is your story on the vocal? Like where did you learn how to? Did you sing from the time you were a kid? What was the story there?
Yeah, like I think one of the things that plays into my imposter syndrome sometimes is that I don't really read music. I haven't really I don't have a formal education background. I never went to school. I didn't and that used to feel to me like a weak point, like something that I would have to say to be like, hey, don't worry about me, whatever. But I mean, like now I've been doing this long enough and understand all the different paths, and like it doesn't feel as much like a detriment or whatever. But that really like plagued me for a while. I just didn't feel like I learned in that way. Like I didn't retain things. When I would try to take theory lessons, I would try to take like voice lessons, but my mom was like, I met this lady at church, go to her basement, and like she's like, all right, we're gonna do show tunes and hymns. And I was like, like it just, I never found like this mentor or someone that could really pull me through in that way. But I felt like it was just me in my room making up shit, listening to vocalists that I admired, emulating everything I would hear, just like, and then playing bar gigs and singing with Joey Lander, singing from 10 p.m. till 3 a.m, all these cover songs, and with no one in the room, figuring out, like, I feel like that's how I found my voice in a huge way, was trying things, trying to be different vocalists, trying to be different people, and then being like, oh, I don't do that. But what does my voice do? Oh, maybe it does that. Okay, I don't do that. And like, it was just sheer like practice without knowing that I was practicing, I guess, in a way.
Yeah. Well, it was working, but
Yeah.
you were honing the craft for sure. I mean, that
Yeah.
makes total sense. So
Mm-hmm.
many great vocalists seem to do well. First of all, you got to play the gigs. You got to sing the hours. Singing into
Oh
a
gosh.
microphone is different than singing at home.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Singing in a bar is different. Singing through a PA, all of those things are like part of the learning. But like pre-PA, pre-bar, you're at home,
Yes.
which is in
Yeah.
Winnipeg. Did you grow up in
Which is in
Winnipeg?
Winnipeg. Yep. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you grew up in Winnipeg, and you're
Mm-hmm.
like chilling in your room listening to like Whitney Houston, or is it like
Listening to,
later?
I grew up really Christian,
Okay,
like, so, but not that my parents weren't super like restrictive in terms of what I would listen to, but to a degree they were, like when I was younger. But my dad was really into the Beatles and had like a bunch of vinyl, and I really wanted to like be, I was just such like a keener child. I was like, I want to be a good girl. Daddy, will you love me? Like whatever. And I was like, what do you want to do today? And then I would get him to like print like the vinyl onto tapes that I could put into my room. So a lot of like the vinyl that he'd be listening to, which was not the more Christian stuff, but it was like Beatles, like Three Dog Night, like
yeah, okay,
shit like that, that I would just be like playing with my Barbies and making up all these different scenarios with them of like, hey, Jude, like Jude was going to leave Ken or whatever. Like, and they were all doing their thing. Like I would have these dramatic scenarios. I just spent so much time alone in my room, just like, and then eventually it was like, Ace of Base, Mariah Carey, stuff like that. When I just like, you'd go to school and like no matter what you're allowed to listen to or not at home, like all the things kind of leak
the big
into
pop
your
music.
mind. Pop music, but then also like the greatest influence on, I think, like the album that I first listened to, that I kind of like looked at the liner notes for the first time, was a Fiona Apple, When the Pawn. And I just remember like being like, what's a producer? Like what does this mean? Like it kind of like allowed me to see music in a different way. I mean, then I had this friend burn me a D'Angelo CD and an Erykah Badu CD. And then that also like expanded my mind in every way. Like, so it's kind of those. And then like when I first heard Nina Simone, it was like, whoa, that's what I want to do. Like whatever that singing is, like that's what I want to do. Like there's
Right.
just, I just feel like I had all these different like miniature kind of teachers, like
Yeah.
through all these different like vocalists that I would kind of like slowly discover through sitting at the computer pirating music as a teenager, or like whatever. Yeah.
Did you sing in church? Like, were you
I sang in church.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
I
And so
did.
that would give you experience too in front of singing in front of people.
Definitely. And I was definitely like more like out there personality wise. So I think people would be like, Alexa, you want to do this? Go and do that. Like I would just be encouraged or kind of prodded to like sing in front of people. So those kind of nerves melted away pretty early. Like I still get nervous in a particular way, like going up in front of people, but I embrace it. It's just the way that it is. I don't try to like push it away, but I feel like, yeah, there was a certain barrier that was broken pretty early on for me in terms of like performing in
Yeah,
front of
okay.
people.
That makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
You know what I
Totally.
mean? It's often with really great singers. They had an opportunity to sing quite frequently in front of people at some point,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be in church, whether it be in choir, whether it be in whatever, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
A country cover band playing with their parents when they're six. There are those out there too, you know?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And my parents weren't musical at all. Like no one, not at all. Like we had a piano and my mom would like bounce me on her knee and sing all the harmonies at church, like to me, but like no one was like particularly musical. I didn't necessarily have a model of
Yeah,
like
right.
what that was. My dad's a visual artist. So I had a model of an alternative lifestyle that didn't make a lot of money, but I
That's
didn't
important.
yeah, but I
I
didn't
mean,
necessarily,
it's
yeah.
that's interesting. That's interesting. I didn't know that. I mean, it is though. It's funny that you say that because, but ultimately, it's about like imagining possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you can imagine that there a career in the arts is a thing.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know
Uh,
what, like my mom said that like and I kind of vaguely remember this, but when I was like 8, I was like screaming, crying, being like, you need to get me a manager. And she's like, I don't even know what a manager is. I was like, I don't either,
but they sound great.
but but I need one.
Wow. Okay. Right. Right. That's
Um,
crazy. Oh, that makes
mm,
sense. I mean, that all makes sense. And so
yeah.
then Chic Amin coming out that came after playing in the bars with Joey? Was that the
That
next?
was bars with that was right in like kind of like the Venn diagram of that. It
Okay.
was like playing bars, and then they're like some of the women in Shikamin were in a band prior called Madrigal. It was like a vocal group, and that band was kind of splitting up. I was 18 at the time, and I had heard of them throughout the scene because they're kind of like a generation above me, and they were like people that were doing stuff in Winnipeg. And I remember being like, whoa, they're so cool. And I tried to audition to be like an alternate in the band that they had, but little did I know that the band was breaking up. So on my way to the audition, I was like on my way to the bus stop, and I got a call being like, oh, your audition's canceled. And I was like, oh, that's too bad. I guess this just not meant for me. And then they started showing up at my bar gigs in the back, kind of watching, being like,
Right.
hmm. And then we're like, want to go out for coffee? And then they were like, we're starting a new band. And the new band retained almost all the gigs with their US agent that the old band had. So they're like, not only are we starting a band, but in a month, we're playing a showcase in California. We want you to go with us. We have no material. We have to write from scratch, basically everything in a month so that we can retain all these gigs that we want to, like all these festivals in the States, like folk festivals and stuff.
Wow.
And I was like 18, was like, what the fuck is going on? Playing bar gigs with this bar band where we were like, we're going to make it. We have a weekly gig at Hooligans Pub. Like we are making it, and we were going to do this together. And then I was in this crossroads of like these people that were like, we're actually we're going on tour and we want to take you with us. And like this flashy shit, and these really nice people that were like, we want to take you on this journey with us. We barely know you. You barely know us. My dad was like, is this a pyramid scheme? Like, what is happening with you? Like, he didn't know like what was going on. Like, who are these people out of nowhere trying to take you on tour with them? I'm like, I don't know. And then I had on the other hand, like Joey and Meg and Ryan, my pals from being kids that were like, we're going to do this together, like the hardcore way. We're slogging it out. We're just beginning. And I was at this crossroads, and I was like, it was one of, at that time, I remember like being ill, like physically ill, trying to make that decision. Like, because feeling like I didn't want to betray my best friends, but then there was this opportunity to make a career, like in a real way, that I had been dreaming of my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately I was like at the same like couple that burnt me the D'Angelo and Erica Badu records and were huge influences on me, sitting around a table with them, drinking tea. And they're like, you'd be stupid not to go on tour with these people. Like, I know this bar band, like they will still be your friends. You have to do this. And I was like, so then I felt like, yeah, there was just those two roads, and I chose that one. And it was a bit tough, like for my friendships for a while, but now we're great friends again. Me and Joey
Yeah,
and me
right.
and Meg, like it all comes full circle. It's like, and it was all the best for all of us. Like for that, like we all needed to go our separate ways, but it was just big growing pains, man, to get there. But then shit came in, and then that just kind of took off. And then I was in that band touring like pretty consistently for 8 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's intense. It's
It
intense.
was really
I remember,
intense.
like, I knew you toured a ton, and I've talked to Anik about it too, and I know
Hmm.
the schedule and how wild it was for
It
those
was
8
wild.
years. Great
Hmm.
singers. So the whole band is
So fun. And that was something too. It really, I think, sharpened my skill. And what I wasn't the front person of that band. We all were like, and that was very pointed. Like it wasn't just me, like it taught me so much in humility, in uh ego, like maintenance, but also it was so fun. Like nothing do I love more than singing in harmony, like locking in like that. Like,
yeah, right.
and we just had so much fun, like together, and just all the adventures, like, and not being the front person. So we'd show up in Ohio in the middle of the night, and I'm like, well, I'm only singing 4 songs in the set tomorrow. Do you want to go out, like, and just like hang out all night, like just doing like all like the silly things that like a person does that I just don't think I could maintain now at all. But like, just I don't know, like so many good memories. Like it really, like I cut my teeth in the industry in the hugest way in that band. And also just, yeah, like found this love of harmony, soul nourishing power of harmony,
Yeah.
of singing with other people. Like, cause that was the basis of the entire band. It was all based on, it started with the voice. It didn't start with the instrumentation. It started like with the voices. And that was just something that also growing up in different bands, feeling kind of like, oh, you're the singer's the diva, like singing in bands, and like bless you, Joey Landreth, but the guitar was always so loud. And I'm like 18 being like, ah, and my parents are in the back being like, you gotta turn up. I'm like, you're not gonna win this tonight, Mom, at Hooligans Pub at 3 a.m. Like, they're not
Yeah.
turning the vocalist up here. Like, you just gotta, and don't embarrass me, please. Like just fighting with like, and trying not to appear like a diva. So I was always like, I'm cool. I eat cheese before I sing. I can scream. I know how to hang. Like, but then I'm with all these vocalists where they're all like, can you turn me up in my monitor? And I'm like, I can ask for that.
Yeah. Permission.
Is that, are we
Permission to
just all
diva.
being
Yeah, that's
like
the best.
delicate? Like we're all just like getting what we want here. Like it was just this whole other
That's
universe.
interesting. So, do you think you were ready? Like when you say it taught you how to check the ego, like were you ready to be the front person, and then that band kind of made you kind of go, wait, 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 there is no front person, or was
You
it
know,
like,
no, like I was just ready for adventure, I think. I was
yeah,
18. I had never been on tour. I had just quit my full-time job because I had this feeling. Like I graduated high school and I was gonna go to fucking like Bible school or some shit. I was gonna go like do all these random things. And then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take a year off. I was working with like adults and kids with disabilities, doing respite work, like shit that I really actually enjoyed. But I would be at these bars till 3 a.m, so tired. I like I like dropped a I didn't drop a kid, but like I definitely like was holding a kid's hand on an obstacle course and like kind of dropped them. And like it was just shit like that. Like it just got to be like I had to choose like one or the other. And I was like to my parents, this declaration, like I still live in your basement, but I'm quitting my job. And they're like, excuse me?
yeah, yeah,
Like how does that work? And then within weeks is when the people from Shikamin approached me and were like, come on tour. The magical mystery bus is leaving.
you're like, I am getting on board.
And I was like, I'm getting on this bus.
And how did your parents react?
Well, honestly, my dad was like, what do these people want from you?
Right.
Like at first. But then we had these like house concerts in the city, kind of introducing who the band was. We were doing these things. And my parents came to every gig. They were there and they were just kind of observing. They're like, these people are actually really nice. And my dad was like, they always want to hug me. And I'm not really a hugger, but all these French people, they love hugging. And so, but it really like, I think he was witnessing that they actually really cared about me, that we were developing a real bond. And they were just like, be free, do what you got to do. I think they knew also that it's just something that I wanted so bad
Yeah.
that they had to just like let me see for myself what it was like.
Yeah. Oh, I have a very similar experience.
Okay.
In that Yeah, like my parents were super resistant. And it was
Really?
like I went to university, but then after university, I was like, I'm going to take a year. I swear I'm going to do my LSATs. Like this is going to happen.
Oh, you were LSATting
Like
yourself.
I'm gonna go to like law school. Dad, don't worry about it. I'm gonna
Whoa.
take a year off. I'm gonna make a record. And then the problem was that I was like, I was obsessed. I was
That's it though.
obsessed. I
That's it.
literally, that was just like, I need to try this. I need to do this. And they were thankfully understanding enough to be like, he's probably not going to let this thing go. And then the problem is, it didn't get worse after one record. Then I was like, oh, this is fun. Look, I can like drive around and like almost make a couple bucks.
Yeah, you're like LSAT. What?
Yeah,
Who
exactly.
needs a law degree?
I still think about it every once in a while, but
LSATs?
yeah, yeah.
No, I got no LSATs in
Yeah,
me.
no.
There's
So
no.
it was an interesting era, but making that jump is a huge thing. And you were 18,
I was 18, yeah.
so that's no parachute. You're right in there.
Oh yeah, but
But
also like I was 18 and just like naive enough to not care.
yeah,
Like I was just and honestly, like with
and it
that
was
band at the
legit.
beginning,
It was
and it was
legit from
legit.
like right from the get go. It was
It was
not like you were. It was
it was legit. We were all packed into an MPV with no air conditioning, driving across to California in the heat of the summer. Like it was legit, but I also like any of those things, like I did not care. Like it was an adventure to me. Like it was everything. And I was really quiet at the beginning, which everyone was like, I can't believe, like when Sasha like first met me, because I took French in school and I was like more fluent than I think I gave myself credit for, but I was so nervous to like sound stupid, or so I was just like, bonjour, mes amis, like not really saying anything. And Sasha was like, when I first met you, I thought you were quiet. And now then the truth was revealed that like I was just shy, like I was just nervous. But yeah, it was just like I felt like I was just so overstimulated. And so like that I actually didn't even know. I feel like I only really woke up to what was really going on in most ways, like maybe only 3 or 4 years into the band was I like, oh, okay, I have an opinion about this or that, because I was just kind of like wide-eyed, like you booked a hotel. Like I didn't even know what was going. I was just there. Like I was along for the ride and enjoying every minute of it, but like not a part of the administrative stuff involved. Like I definitely partway through that was when I was like, oh, this is what goes on behind the scenes. Cause I think I was like the baby, like they'd call me giant baby in an endearing way, but yeah. Cause I would dance like a giant baby. Yeah.
okay. I didn't know that part. I knew a little bit about the band, but I didn't know that part. So like, this is 8 years of doing crazy gigs. Like, was there a point that it got difficult or tiring? Like, I mean, that's a lot of tour, and you were touring sometimes with like family members and babies
Oh
and
yeah.
stuff, right?
Well, Nick and Sash would bring their little baby and their mom,
Not a
and
baby anymore.
not a baby anymore, like a 11 or 12-year-old now.
Yeah, basically a
Oh.
teenager.
But at first, I remember Nick and Sash coming to a rehearsal and being like, hey, everyone, we're having a kid. And Drina and I being like, what the fuck? We're having a kid. Like, what are we going to do? No one consulted with us to have a baby in the band. Like, what are we going to do? Man, but I got to hand it to them, though. Like, I had no clue. I was a bait, like I was just like living my truth, like, and I thought I was being very like, oh yeah, I know what's going on. I had no clue how much shit they must have had to go through to make that happen. And Nick was in the studio with Lelio was it 4 weeks or 4 months after, singing like in studio with this baby. And I just like, they really went for it for the sake of the band. And I don't think I appreciated that as much back then, because I was like, we're in it. The band is everything. Like, but also then I fell in love with their child. And that was like my solace on the road, like Lelio, like their baby. Like I was so torn by the whole thing. And then they would bring him on the road. And I was like, oh shit, I love this baby. Like and whenever like there'd be kind of tension or anything would be happening, I'd just be like, I will take the baby now. We will go for a walk. And he was obsessed with exit signs and garbage cans, because I guess that was the most consistent thing at every venue. There was an exit sign and a garbage can. So we just go for walks. Like feel like it was the greatest gift that was offered to me at that time. And it also just showed me this world of like how to be a woman in the world and have a family, and that it is possible. It is fucking hard, but that it is possible to do. And there's so much stigma around it too. It's so much bullshit would be thrown her way and their way. Like at a festival, she'd have him in like a baby Bjorn, and people would be like, shouldn't he be sleeping? And it's like, he's at home. He's with her. He's home. He's fine. Like I would just get so defensive. Like it started as this thing that I was so kind of like, what is this going to be for us? And then it became this thing that I couldn't have seen my life, our life, like without this family energy in the band.
It's so beautiful, though.
Oh
Especially
my
now looking
gosh.
at it, I remember finding it so inspiring. I have 2 kids,
Yes. Okay.
and I got to know them, I guess, probably right around the time that we had our first. And it was like kind of proof like I was like, wow, this is so inspiring. They have like a real both of them in Montreal now have this totally connected artistic life where it just kind of is free flowing and there's a child involved but it's like there wasn't a big division between like, okay, it's over. Kids born, we shut it all down. It wasn't like that.
Totally.
Even when I got to know them in Montreal, that wasn't the vibe. And I've really it opened a door to my again, it's kind of like what we were talking about, like imagination seems to be so much a part of the artistic career. Is like,
Mm-hmm.
can one imagine what it would look like if there's like one first thing is like the desire to do it, and then it takes a couple people to show you like, okay, there's different ways to do this.
Absolutely.
Like, and in towns like Winnipeg, it requires people who are older than you. So, sometimes a generation or two. Like I grew up in Fredericton. Like if it wasn't for Molly Lamb Boback, who's a painter, famous painter who recently passed away here, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if I would have thought that being an artist from Fredericton would have been a possible. But she had a great, you know what I mean? Like she was a renowned artist and
Mm-hmm.
painted every day and swam
And I
in the
wonder
river
who
and
her
like,
inspiration was, like, or if she just broke the mold herself. Like, that's so interesting too.
yeah, I think about that a lot. I think about it with sports, like you get Sidney Crosby and then a couple of years later you get like Nathan McKinnon from the same town or like
Mm.
it just happens. It's like this. So it's a sidetrack, but I often think about these, like how it helps to have these examples in our lives that allow us to imagine, because otherwise it's really hard. We're like, okay, well then a career looks like this.
Oh,
A career
absolutely.
looks like me in LA, living this, doing this. That's how it
And
goes.
as
And
a
otherwise
woman,
it's
a career looks like this. As a woman,
I
as an
bet.
aging woman, that's like what a career looks like. And it ends, not only does it end when you're 30, but it ends when it ends when you're 30, and then you can pick it up a bit, but then you have a kid, bye, irrelevant, you're done. But it's like, I was just sitting there with this like example right in front of me of the tenacity that like it just doesn't have to be anyway. It doesn't have to be anything. But all this to say, like, not only do I know that it was very hard for them sometimes, but like, I'm sure even more than I even fully understand, because I would go back to my hotel room at the end of the night and be like, what a great day. Bye, Lilio. I love you. And then they would have to be up with the child and then also go into the tour van, because we weren't millionaires, like into the tour van, into the car seat all day, keeping a human alive, and then have to play a show, be out till whenever. Like, it's just like, I think about it now and I'm like, that is really impressive. I don't know that I could do that in the same way.
No,
I
I
don't know.
mean, no, I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to even speak to it, of course, because we did one tour as a family. This
Mm-hmm.
is a completely different story because my wife was on maternity leave. This is the thing. I
Mm.
was playing the gigs and we were driving around in like a Hyundai Elantra for 2 months with a baby and
Wow.
staying in different hotels every night. It was already intense enough that by the end of the tour, my wife Nina was like, I was like, that was the best. I had everything. Like I was a dad and a musician. Let's do it forever. Like she was like, no, no, not anymore.
Maybe cute for you, dude, but not for
Exactly.
me.
But it was hard enough for us, and she wasn't playing shows, and now I've obviously I've had some of my first tours. One of my first tours was with Catherine McClellan
Mm,
with her young baby at the time, and obviously Jen Grant now and Jill Barber.
mm-hmm.
Many of my friends have become mothers and kept their careers going. It's been amazing to watch and totally inspiring, but no joke, it's friggin' intense.
Yeah, we can
So
romanticize
intense.
it, but it seems fucking intense.
That's
Like
right.
it seems like it's like wow, and I loved having the baby there, but it's like, yeah, that must have been hard.
Hmm.
And again, like I saw the judgment that was sometimes passed on. And when we were touring until she was like 8 months pregnant or something, and people would be like just like the little snooty little stares or whatever. And I would just like be behind her, like I'm ready to fight.
Yeah.
I'm ready to fight
Let's go.
someone.
You want to go?
Uh,
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, it's a lot of days. I think we actually might have run into each other at the now that you're talking about California at Strawberry Fest, like a long time ago.
yeah, that was a beautiful festival
Yeah,
to go play.
amazing.
And that was one of the ones that was like already booked. Like when they were like,
Okay.
okay, we want to start this band. We have to go play these festivals. That was one of the first ones that we played like as a band, like flying by the seat of our pants.
Wow. Okay, so let's go to starting Begonia then. Like what happens? So then like band dissolves,
Yeah.
and you're like, okay, what's going on now? Did you think of it like doing something
Band dissolved,
else,
and I was like, I cannot stop the wheels of this train in my mind, or I am scared what will happen to my brain. Like, I think like everyone has their different like grieving processes and stuff too. And I feel like it was like an amicable enough, like, what is a word? Dissolution, dissolving? What? I don't know. It was amicable enough, like when the band broke up, but it was a breakup, and it was hard. Like it was a grieving thing that I feel like I didn't fully just like sit down and process. I was like, go, like right away. I was just like ready to go, trying to start something else. I didn't have a name for it, but and on the side, like throughout the band's life, I was always writing different material, collaborating with Matt Schellenberg from Royal Canoe. Him and I had been collaborating for like years already. Little side projects, or I would write songs for the band and only a few would get on a record. So then I'd have like some in this pile of like never used songs. So, and I just felt like I was in this mindset that like, I am not ready to be at home yet. I want to just be like, I was still on a moving train in my mind. So I just kept going. Like immediately I started writing for my first EP, or started compiling really like songs that we had already written for my first EP with Matt Schellenberg, and had a very meager budget, and was like, it's like the kind of budget where you like ask someone like, hey, I know that this is so much smaller like than you're worth, but will you do it for X amount of dollars? Like you don't wait for them to tell you their price. You say what you have, and then you really like cross your fingers and hope that they'll do that. That was the kind of the vibe. And we went into the studio and just did like a 5-song EP. And then I was like, okay, what do I want to be? And you know what? I'm glad I had the foresight to not call myself just Alexa, because that would have been a nightmare now with all this Amazon shit. I'm just like,
seriously.
I knew I didn't want it to be Alexa Dirks because I felt like it sounded a bit country. But I also was like, I wanted just a bit of an arm's length, because I didn't know, was this going to be a band? Was this going to be just me? I didn't really know. And my partner at the time was looking through this plant book, and I don't know, whatever I came up with the name Begonia.
But Begonia, the idea was like project name, gives it
project
some flexibility.
Name. Exactly.
Not right.
Not kind of tying it down to like it having to just be me, just in case it wasn't just me. Because I was always in bands. I didn't know what it was going to be, but then it ended up just being me. And I just kind of was like flying by the seat of my pants, having been in rehearsals all my life and many different times. But then it was so different when I was like leading the rehearsal. I remember like physically like being ill like prior to my first rehearsal with Begonia, because I was like, I can't be a leader, like a band leader alone, like telling people what to do. And I had already like, I had been doing it for so long already in different contexts, but it was just, it felt like this whole new frontier. It was like I was a baby, like all over again, starting over. But every decision I would make, like having one successful rehearsal, it was like, okay, I dodged that bullet. Okay. It just felt like I was getting a little bit stronger and a little bit stronger, like on my own, like every little new decision that I would make. Finishing the EP. Okay, I did that. Okay, well, what's the next thing? Having the first rehearsal. Okay, I didn't totally fuck that up. Okay, well, let's keep going. Like, let's see how far I can take this, like one step at a time, basically,
It's
was kind of
amazing. I
the
mean,
energy.
being a band leader is terrifying. So
It
hard.
is. It is.
It's
And
so
also it's
hard.
just learning the language of everyone you're with
That's right.
too.
Yeah.
And being confident in your language, being like, well, I hope that you understand when I say that you're gonna play that exactly the way that I'm hearing it or whatever. It's like there's so many different ways to talk about music. And I would just always have this fear of like looking dumb or being dumb or whatever. But it's like, yeah, slowly it's like when you just present yourself, like it's not fake it till you make it per se, but kind of, it's just like being confident in your own ideas. Like
Yeah.
people would come to me and tell me how it is all my life in bands, like, oh, this is what you're supposed to do. And it wasn't even like they were coming from some scholastic place. They were just confident in their decisions. And so I was like, okay, I can be confident. I can do
Well, I
that.
always feel like there's a certain amount of room that needs to get filled up for something to happen, to something
Mm-hmm.
to be created. And so
Yeah,
sometimes it's, and like the artist sometimes fills up all that room. Sometimes it's the producer. And sometimes if there's not one side or the other kind of has to fill in that gap. But as you said, like
totally.
it's, a lot of it's just having an opinion.
And being confident in your
Like
opinion.
it's just like actually having a vision, having an opinion, but it takes a long time. I'm the
Uh-huh.
same way. I'm like, do what you think. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Or that's cool. Or like, if I say something at this point, am I going to hurt someone's feelings? And it's
Mm-hmm.
so difficult to get to where you want to go unless you can kind of present a vision or ideas with confidence.
Mm-hmm. And if you like, and sometimes I don't know right away. So I could say this or that or the other thing, but like then change my mind like maybe like 5 minutes later and being like, no, 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 this is what I want. Now that I've heard that, I know what I don't want. And I actually want this.
Great.
But it's also just about like, and I feel like I've gotten a lot more like all of this Begonia journey has been such a enlightening experience for me. And like, and yeah, and just being confident in myself, like, and just making decisions and trusting myself and trusting my own instinct. And the amount of times that I would not trust myself and then things would go in a certain way, I was like, oh man, why
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
I why didn't I trust myself? Like, because and it's just like setting my own boundaries, like so many lessons that I've learned in the last, like, now I've been doing this for like 5 years, 6 years. And I feel like every time I do something new, I learn something major. Like every album, every gig, like not every gig. Well, yeah, maybe every gig, but just like every tour, like I feel like I am like on the next like level, like in the video game, like going like you're almost at the big boss, but the big boss is just forever away because I don't ever want to totally tackle the big boss because then that means it's over. But it's like,
The
yeah,
big boss. What's the big
like
boss?
Bowser, like the big boss, like you
Bowser. Like Double Dragon?
like Double Dragon. Like I'm talking about, I'm in my video game mind now, man.
No,
I'm sorry, I abandoned myself in the pandemic. I never thought I'd become my 14-year-old self again, but I did. But it's like, yeah, you're like leveling up every little thing, every little accomplishment, and then suddenly there's that end goal, which is whatever to whoever in the music. Everyone has like their
yeah,
visions
yeah.
of what success is, but it's like I also feel like I never really want to reach that end goal because then does that mean it's over? Like I just want to keep going, keep learning, keep growing, and then back to just Winnipeg being an inspiring place to do that. It's like that's what it feels like here, and it feels like there's a lot of people settling here and like lots of musicians, like the community is kind of just growing and pulsing right now in a way that it's like, I don't want to leave now. Like I want to learn more. There's more for me to learn from this community, I feel still
So
within this
there's
journey.
no real push to take off to a big city or
I mean, sometimes like I
yeah.
think about, but I like the idea of extended stays. That's kind of what I mean, traveling right now is a who
Yeah.
knows what's going to happen, but I always like the idea, like before the pandemic hit, Matt Schellenberg, Matt Peters and I were going to go to New York for like 3 months, like in the fall, and just be in an Airbnb, hang out, just feel the energy, and then come home and like do the same in like LA, do the same in Montreal, do the same, like just kind of pop around, but then always have the home base here
Mm-hmm.
to come back to. That's kind of the way that I feel like I would like to live my life, if possible.
Right. I do like that. I appreciate this is a little sidetrack with not too much time left, but I really want to talk about. I just also want to appreciate the fact that your music has a real energy to it. Like it's got pace, and
Mm.
it is often dance oriented music.
Which is so interesting, but
It it
yeah.
is so interesting, and I feel like, but I love it. Like, first of all, I love dancing. I love music that
Thank
makes
you.
me want to dance. I find I want to play your music a lot because of that energy. I just find it was like, was that a conscious decision? Was that something? Was that like part of your vision when you got into it? You're like, okay, I want to make kind of music that makes people party or at least move their heads, because it's almost always pretty beat oriented.
No, because I'm not really like a I'm not in my mind when I write music, I always feel like I'm so depressing. So then it's like these I feel like that's a lot of like a Matt's influence too, because I would just be like, here is this like funeral dirge or something that like I would bring, and they would just be like, they'd be like, all right, let's put a beat to it. And I'd be like, oh, okay. And then it just now like, yeah, like I'm drawn to pop music. I always have been, but also I'm drawn to really brooding, emotional music. Like that's like I'm a brooding person, like at home alone. If I could choose one or the other, like that's generally where I go. So this whole like, I'm always so surprised when people are like, yeah, your music makes me want to dance. I'm like, it does. And I listen, I'm like, okay, that does make sense. That wasn't necessarily what I was trying to do, but I guess it does make sense.
But it
But it,
starts from a place of brooding emotional. That's where it
yeah,
starts.
generally
And
speaking, yeah. No, I'm not sitting there being like, I'm so happy to be
yeah,
alive. Here's a song about that. It's
yeah.
like, even though maybe I am at times, it's just like that's not what comes out of me as naturally. But I will say on this next record, whenever it may release itself into the world, I definitely abandon a lot of like the pretension I feel like I've had in the past to just sing about lighter things. Like I feel like I've always, even if some of the songs sound lighter, I feel like lyrically I've always been like, yeah, but like it's serious, like no matter what, da 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 da. And I think in some of these newer songs that I've been working on, I've just like not cared about trying to guide it in one particular way, like trying to be like, I have to showcase myself as this like serious lyricist or this kind of like to be in the ring with people I respect or whatever. It's just like I wanted to write about friendship, so I did. It's like whatever, instead of being like, I wonder what people will think if I write about friendship in this way and if people will be cheesed out, because I used to be more concerned about what people thought of me all the time.
Yeah, for sure. That's what so are all of us. It's like, but it's a real difficult combination with artistic creative output.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? That preoccupation
definitely.
is detrimental.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And
I
it just
listen to so
squashes so
many
much joy.
and so much possibility, even if it's
Yeah.
silly. I mean, sometimes it's silly, sometimes it's super brooding. Sometimes you write something that sounds too sad. You think it's too
Mm-hmm.
it's the opposite. You're like, oh, is this too personal? Is
Mm-hmm.
this
Oh my
too
gosh,
personal?
yeah.
How often do
That's
you
the
get in
real.
that situation,
Oh yeah,
But all of those things is that like that pre-editing tendency.
exactly.
You don't know. I hear songs all the time, and we listen to tons of pop music at home too. And you kind of go,
Mm.
wow, like, I wouldn't have thought of that because, or I might have edited that out. I might have
Uh-huh.
thought that was too silly or too serious or too personal, or
But you're hearing it and then you're like, I really connect with that.
Yeah.
Like on some level, be it just your body connects with it or your mind or your heart or whatever. It's like, aren't I glad that that person didn't care?
Well, that's what it comes down to. That's why I say because output is ultimately what we're in the business. You know what I mean? We're trying to
Mm-hmm.
get stuff created, trying to
Mm-hmm.
create something. So
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, if that's the goal, then those things they can get in the way.
Oh
In fact, they
gosh.
can paralyze you.
100%.
I,
No,
I
I feel way more free now in some ways, like in that regard. And maybe it's a pandemic thing or whatever, because it's just like, who knows what the future holds? Who knows? Like I'm supposed to maybe go on a tour in March. I don't know, but I don't want to hold to anything too tightly. I just want to be in the joy of creating and offer what I can, because I know what I know what that kind of music gives to me, be it pop music, be it classical music, be it whatever, like just kind of like the letting go, like when I can understand that a writer is just not giving a fuck about what someone thinks of them. It's like, oh man, that's so freeing to listen to. It's like, okay, I want to do that. What's the point at this point in my life of like holding back from doing that? It doesn't offer me anything.
It's just so hard to stay in that. I mean, maybe it's one of those things that now it's kind of like we're all in that situation because none of us, there's so much uncertainty.
I know.
There's
Yeah.
so much uncertainty that ultimately, as you said, you kind of are just grabbing at the joy that you have, that you can
Absolutely.
create. That's right there. There's no one's going to make you grand promises at this time. You do this, and we'll give you this. You're like, yeah, right. Like, you know what I'm saying?
I'd like to see it.
Yeah, yeah. Good luck with that. But at the same time, I do kind of the opposite of like that response to when we see something that feels free and liberating.
Yeah.
How fun it is to watch Prince.
Oh my
You know, like
gosh.
to watch Prince when I was going to say he was always at his prime of creative output. He was just from the beginning was just this liberated creative spirit.
So
So
good.
fun and so inspiring to watch. But then we have the opposite as pressure can mount on people's careers. It's also really easy as we get older. There's so many other pressures in our lives. It's so easy to then start allowing the other factors to influence the creative that
Mm-hmm.
oh geez, I got to make sure that this song works because if this next song doesn't work,
Mm-hmm.
then the whole project's not, it kind of
Oh yeah,
doesn't
and I
go.
had that like at the beginning of writing kind of for this new era of music, I had that a lot, being like, okay, well, for my last album, I had this song in this order, and people really liked that one there. So do I have anything kind of like akin to that now that I'm writing? Like, how are people going to react to that? Like, this actually sounds a little bit different or a little bit da 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 da. And at the beginning, like, it really kind of immobilized me for a while. Like, I didn't want to really write anything, or I didn't believe in anything I was writing because I was thinking too hard of like how people were going to perceive it or whatever based on already having like an output. Because on the first album I had not really that much out. It felt different. But upon reflection, I was so anxious about how it was going to be received. Like every email I would write, it'd be like, well, is this the one that is going to change my life? Is this the one I shouldn't have written? Should I have done this one to this person? If I sent this SoundCloud link at this time on a Monday, is that a bad move or a good move? Is this the thing that's going to move this forward? Like just every
I've been there. I have
little
like been so in that state of mind,
obsessive,
yeah.
and now it's like, I feel like with this collection of songs, I feel like, you know what? I did that obsessive thing. I didn't have that much fun at certain points when I was that obsessed, and things still turned out exactly how they were going to turn out, either way, be it like as obsessed as I was. So I'm just really like, and I'm saying this out loud because I've been saying this out loud to like my partner, to like every person that will care to listen. I'm really trying to enjoy myself this time around.
Yeah, good.
Like just like enjoy and indulge in the creative collaboration, indulge in what the songs mean to me, like just find joy where I can, find meaning where I can, just really enjoy this process without thinking about or worrying about what cool like blog is going to post about this, or like who's going to watch or what are the view counts on that, or like what, like I just want to like just erase there's still at a level of that when you're making this a career that like you have to take certain things seriously, blah blah blah, but like I just want to enjoy this so much more than I did last time. I was so anxious last time.
I think I was extraordinarily anxious for a good 14 years. I'm not even joking. I'm not that I'm
It's
not anxious
hard.
now. And again, you need to be anxious. You need to care. There's a difference
Oh my
between
gosh,
caring.
yes.
You need to care. You want
Of
it to
course.
succeed.
Of
But it's
course.
about being so anxious about those little things that actually aren't really tied to the art. It's about
And
the
it doesn't even help
emails,
you. Like
about the SoundCloud links, and then now we have metrics for everything.
I know.
So like, and so there's a real thing about like, as you said, the danger of looking back on like, oh, that worked. Maybe I should like,
Uh-huh.
that's what people want. And it's like, man, not that, sure, that would be great if it worked, but we also know that that kind of thing doesn't necessarily work, at least long term. And it's also not
Mm-mm.
particularly fulfilling.
Mm-mm. And how cringy it is to just like watch people you love try so hard to meet
Mhm.
those metric demands, and you're just like, but I know you, how lovable you are as your authentic self. And that's what I want to see. That's what I want, like just that authenticity. And that's like, if I'm ever like, I found myself being asked to do all these different like mentoring panel things, which feels so weird because I still feel like a child. And then there's these like actual like teenagers that are like, how do I have a music life? I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know how to get out of bed some days. Like, why am I the person? But then it's like you realize that like just by virtue of doing this for a while, that you do have like wisdom to kind of impart just by experience. And always the thing that I would say is like, there's no one else that is you. You can try and hear a song that you like on the radio and emulate it or whatever, but like it's already been done. Like, and yeah, in music, so much has already been done, but it's just like, there's only you can tell your story. Like only you, that's so cheesy, but it's like that's the thing that like I would say in like a mentoring session, but then that I also just would have to like remind myself in the mirror, like every day, like you can try to be cool, like XYZ person, and try to be loved like XYZ person, but like you are only you. You can't be in anyone else's body or like have anyone else's career, even if you wanted to. Like, and if you do, it's just like, how unfulfilling is that to like just be in someone else's shadow or try to live someone else's life? It's like you have this, I don't know. That's
Well, and you have different needs. This is, you know, you have different needs too. It might not even work. I mean, it
well,
wouldn't work
exactly.
artistically. It wouldn't work artistically, but it might not give you the thing you think it's going to give you because they're a different person too. Like, but
Exactly.
I've really noticed this again, not to go back to the radio show, but now I'm playing all this music for the first time, really listening to a ton of different stuff. And I'm like, ultimately, the thing that determines whether I play it is whether it feels like it's unique. Like,
Mm,
if it creates a unique vibe that I
mm-hmm.
feel immersed in, and I'm like, okay, I'm on board. Like that can vary. That can
I
vary.
believe it.
Like, yeah, I can believe it. And what does it make believable? Well, it means it kind of comes from a source, a
Mm-hmm.
believable source. But man, I know but I feel you when you said that the anxiety thing. I mean, I think, holy smokes, I just was nervous about everything. I was nervous about the boat sinking all the time.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You know, and I think
Mm-hmm.
I still am, of course,
Yeah.
but but maybe the boat sunk.
And you're already on a lifeboat living your
Yeah,
best life, drinking a
we're all
margarita. It's like, who the fuck
exactly,
cares?
exactly.
Yeah, no, I felt that too. Like just staring at my bank account for hours, wondering if things will just magically change. Like, and just like the down being so down and the ups being so like, wow,
Hmm.
this is amazing.
Yeah.
And I just don't like, I really just feel like I try to curb myself from becoming too jaded and just being like, well, this is what's going to happen because this is what always happens. It's like I just really want to try to maintain that balance. I mean, yeah, and sometimes anxiety serves you to help you steer clear of certain things. Sometimes nerves serve you because it means you care, so you put more care into it. Sometimes like steering clear of certain things, but also sometimes just being a dreamer can serve you as well, and just like indulging in the moment can also serve you.
Hmm.
So it's just that balance of like trying to figure out how to be happy within it all too. Like make a living so that I can support myself and my partner and like our life and whatever, and see my family and buy gifts for my niece and nephews. And I just spent way too much money because I thought I'd be getting a fatter paycheck this Christmas, but all these gigs just got canceled. But I was like, yeah, I'll buy that extra fake snot for my nephew
Yeah.
that he can fling at the wall. That's like super expensive. And I'm like, well, I don't want to take the fake snot back, but maybe I didn't have to go that far.
You're
But
right,
anyways, it's
right.
like I just like there's just certain things that I care about and certain things that I don't, and certain things that I used to think that I should care about. I think it was that would go through my mind when I was feeling anxious. It's like, well, everyone's saying that they think you're really good and that they think that you should go on American Idol or whatever, or they think your voice is like, people would be like, you're like Adele or whatever. So you're like, oh, all these people have this projection of what I should be doing and what success looks like. I should want that. I should want to be really famous. Like I should want to be, but I just like the more that like I have grown, the more that I feel like that goes against something fundamental in me. Like when I was searching for that, when I was anxious about what email would go to what A&R person at the right time, it just like, I got no joy from that, like no happiness from that, no fulfillment from that. And yeah, like it's nice to be recognized. It's nice to like have good things like come my way and have like people be kind, but like I feel like I've become more at peace discovering that I don't think like fame and fortune in that way is actually something not only that I think will come my way, but I just don't desire it. Like I don't like saying that out loud, like during the pandemic or whatever. It was just like, felt like I like just released this weight off of myself of like, that's great. Now you can just make stuff. Like now you can just like have a nice time. Like it's still a career. Like I still have to like hustle and shit, but it's like, it just like it was like no one else was holding me to that standard but me. And then when I talked to myself, I was like, we actually don't really care. Oh, we don't? Hooray. Now we can just live our lives.
Oh man, you are speaking my language so deeply, so profoundly. Yeah, I mean, no, honestly, it's so interesting to hear you say that, because that's exactly it. You set those parameters, kind of it's kind of like what we said, this imagination thing, like this idea of just, it's because we kind of limited our imagination of what the career could look like. It only looked like this. It had to be this big, or it was a failure. That's the other side of it, right? Is that you not only is you're getting anxious, but then you start to feel like you suck because I'm not James Taylor.
Yeah. And
Like,
it's like embarrassing that you
I
even
was like,
exist.
I'm like, why am I trying? Why am I trying to do this if I'm not like, shouldn't I be famous by now? I've done this now for a number of years. I got kids. Like, who am I kidding?
Yeah.
Like at my lowest points, that's what was going through my head.
Yeah.
Who am I kidding? Am I a joke? Like, and then I'm like, wait a minute. Like,
ouch.
I'm playing music. Like I'm doing, this is better than I imagined 20 years ago. Like when I was a kid.
Guitars hanging on your wall. You got a room just for that shit.
It's no, like... it's my kids play piano right there. It's a shared room. We watch basketball in here. It's a shared space. But I'm cool with that.
Still, no, that's great.
It's been all part of this. It's been like, I'm moving back to Fredericton. I'm going to have a podcast in a room that I share with my kids. You know what I mean? Like, and that's okay. We can do cool stuff.
And it's not a consolation to life.
Oh man,
it's not like, oh, you're living the downgrade of like what your life's supposed to be. It's like, no, you're living your life. It's a very, it sounds like a very full life. It sounds like the fact that, like, to me, I feel like I wake up and I have not always been this positive, though. I must say, like, I've gone through some dips and ducks, but this is where I'm at right now in this moment. I wake up and I just feel very thankful that I get to do this at all. Like, isn't that nice to like not have to hustle to have another job? I'm definitely not a millionaire, but I feel like just to be able to do it simply, to be able to focus on that, to be able to be close to my family, to watch my nieces and nephews grow up. It's so cute. To be able to travel and meet so many interesting people, like constantly, well, before, but like to have friends all over Canada, all over the world, that I can just be like, hey, we're all in this together, this weird profession that has no handbook or no kind of like direction in some ways, but it's like you make up you choose your own adventure in some ways. And you have to kind of like if you're not at peace with it, like no one else is going to give you that allowance. Like no one. And that was the beginning too of even calling myself an artist. I remember when I was like 18, 19, started to tour. That was my job. That's all I did. But people would be like, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, don't worry. But then it was this one day I was talking to someone else like older than me. It was kind of like a pseudo mentor, was like, if you don't look in the mirror and say, like, no one is going to tell you you're an artist. You kind of, you tell them, like, you have to look in the mirror and be like, this is what I am. No one's going to be like, this is what you are. You're happy. You're successful within your own construct of what that means. You're an artist. It's like, oh, I have to own that first.
Yeah.
Shit. Okay.
Yeah, this is what a sweet career looks like. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's like, if you don't define it for yourself, Someone else will define it for you. And
Exactly. And be like,
will
wow,
come out.
that's sad. And you're like, oh yeah, you're right.
Exactly.
I am sad. It's like, no, yeah. I just like, oh man, it's been such a journey for me of like self-loathing and not believing in myself, but still just kind of pushing forward for what, like chasing whatever this dragon is that would always drive me forward. But just to come to this now in my life, and I'm not going to say that in a month, maybe I'll be like, I hate what I've written. Like, I don't know, whatever. But right now in this moment, to come to that place of like, okay, I accept who I am, where I am, what I'm doing. And I really, really just want to enjoy it. What is the point of life? What is like the point of what is the point of fighting so hard to do this if I'm not going to enjoy it? And that doesn't mean be complacent and like not challenge myself. Like I still want to be challenged and like live the adventure of life and learn new things and evolve. But like I don't just want to be stagnant and be like, I feel great.
Yeah. No, we're all scared of too much happiness. I fear that too, no doubt. But complacency and defining success for yourself, I think, are different. But I feel that. I feel that because there's a part of it where you're like, I always have to say the same thing. Like, oh yeah, I feel, I might feel like garbage in a couple months. But I'm pretty good.
But that's it. And that's why I have to say too, because I don't connect sometimes to artist interviews where like someone's like, and now I finally found peace. And I can teach you because I've finally achieved. And I'm just like, what? Like, there's nothing left. Like now you figured it out. You can die. Like what? Like, because it's like for me, like I know I've gotten to know myself a lot better over these past couple of years too, and just seeing the patterns. It's like I have depressive patterns. Like this is not, but I need to just like verbalize and embrace when things feel nice, and then sit in the shit when it doesn't feel so nice, and then not like. Just, I don't know. Does that make sense?
It makes total. Well, listen, you can call me anytime. You can when you're in the shit, just give me a call. We're riding we're riding the same wave. That's what this is about. I swear to God, like 99, not half the reason, basically the entire reason I like having these conversations is exactly this thing that happens, which is you realize that these patterns, these ups and downs, this is the kind of thing that like this is what it means. This is and so it's very, for me, just from a totally selfish perspective, I love having these conversations because they help me out.
No, me too, for real. It helps me out, and it helps like reinforce. Like sometimes I feel like I say this stuff and it's almost like a mantra that I'm just like saying out loud to like remind myself that that's how I want to feel.
Yes. Yeah, well, it's a start. It's a start for sure. But no, I think I'm so happy to hear that that's where you're at. That's how you're feeling right now. That's beautiful. I can't wait to hear the new stuff.
Ooh.
I can't wait for everybody who's listening to this to watch that amazing video for
Thank
Heaven.
you.
That's so cool. You tell everybody that did the video and the people who shot the video, just please tell them that.
Oh yeah. Well, my partner does all of my set building and designing stuff too. So we just kind of like have found this fun place to work together where I'll be like, I want to be in clouds in a community theater production. And he'll be like, okay. And then go and like put a bunch of shit together.
Super talented. Yeah, the set was super cool.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, this was fun.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me.
No, I appreciate you doing it. We'll do it again. Stay positive.
Trying my best.
Yeah, stay in touch. Most importantly,
exactly. It's like, who knows what'll happen next time, but we'll see.
I feel that. Take care. I totally appreciate you doing this. This was really fun. Peace.
Yes, you too.
Bye.
Bye.